Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Brothers Discuss. I am Alex.
And I'm Chris.
All right, Chris, it's been a little while. There's some weird and crazy stuff that we'll talk about during the show. We got some catching up to do. So I believe today we're going to be starting with the Jack Quaid double feature. All right, let's start with Companion. Now, you've not seen either of these, have you?
No.
Okay, so I won't go into spoilers here. I'll just give brief thoughts on both. First off, I want to say I think it's wild that we've gotten two Jack Quaid movies like this early in the year already. And it's like you would think like he's like a much bigger star than he is, but it's pretty wild. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. I'm not going to lie. Like, for the longest time before these movies came out, and I saw the posters, I thought they were the same movie. I was like, oh, yeah, Jack Quaid's got a new movie coming out. It's like, oh, wait, shit, he's got two coming out.
Right, yeah, no, it's crazy. So if you don't want to know anything about the first film, Companion, and you just want to go on my recommendation, I really liked it. So I would recommend seeing it. I think one of the big stories of the film is the marketing choice, because there was a great teaser trailer that I really liked. And when you watch that alone, you're like, wow, what is this movie about? Like, looks freaky, looks creepy. And then you see the second trailer where our lead character straight up tells you, I should actually say, we learned that our lead character, the Sophie Thatcher character, is a robot. And that would have been nice to not know going into the film. Like, this could be a situation where I like to go, think of the trailer for The Town, that Ben Affleck film, where we know that Rebecca Hall was working at a bank when there was a robbery that happened. And then she meets Ben Affleck, and he's all kind of charming, a bit grungy. And then we learn in the trailer that he was one of the people that was robbing the bank. And when you watch the film, that is revealed to you in the first scene. So it's not really much of a spoiler, but the trailer, it almost appears like the trailer is showing you too much. But when you see the film, it's not that way. So I thought this film might follow the path where we know that she's a robot from the get-go. And I don't know if that's the case. Like, knowing that going in, like, you can see these hints along the way very early. So I can't say that I don't know. I do think that the trailers would have been better not showing it. But still, it's not like a total secret in the film. And it still has lots of surprises. So I would, Companion, I would recommend it. Check it out. All right, now let's talk Novocaine. So this is one of those films that, it is a studio release, but it feels a little bit like, like maybe some years ago where studios were putting out a lot more smaller films like this that were just a film that would come out early in the year and was good. And maybe by the end of the year, you've kind of forgotten that it came out, but you had a fun time when you watched it. And I think I'm kind of aching for more films like that a little more. Like, I know these do come out throughout the year, but, there's still big franchise films. Like, we still have 2 Marvel movies coming out this year. We have Superman. And we have all these big things still to come. We got Minecraft coming out. So, smaller films like this, I'm becoming a little more interested in. And I enjoyed Novocaine. I really like Jack Quaid's performance. I really like Amber Midthunder from Prey and Legion. I think that's where I first saw her, and she's very good. And I had fun with this movie. So yeah, thumbs up for the Jack Quaid little double feature there we got there. All right, Chris, we got some sad news. James Bond is pronounced dead at the ripe age of 70-something years old, I guess. So the story here is that the rights to produce James Bond content is now solely with Amazon. And the main producers, Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli, they remain co-owners of Bond, but they are stepping back entirely to focus on other projects. So Amazon, they were pretty out there, I guess pretty honest with what they want to do with Bond. And essentially, they want to do a Marvel-style thing with James Bond. And I can't say that I have zero hope that they might produce something good, but my thought isn't with Marvel as much as it is Star Wars, because Star Wars used to be, you get a new episode of Star Wars every 3 years at different periods of time, And now Star Wars, there's a new show every few months that have aired, and I got very tired of it very quickly. And when the end of The Mandalorian Season 2 became, look, it's Luke Skywalker again. Like, let's make this story about the already existing main character. I was like, done. I don't care about this anymore. What are your thoughts on this news?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. I'm not like the biggest James Bond guy. Like, I haven't seen a lot of the movies, so this probably isn't as striking to me. But like that approach to, I don't know. It's like that doesn't really. That's a formula that could work for like Star Wars and Marvel because you're building up a lot of pre-existing stuff. With James Bond, they're just really well made like spy thrillers. You don't need to like set up a whole universe about that. It's just you got like 4 or 5 films like every 10 years or so with a different actor, and and then you move on, you do it again, and that's all you do.
Yeah, I mean, it's just diluting it is essentially what's happening. But I guess this is why I compare it to Star Wars, like where, let's say they still made films every year. Like, let's say, Rogue One came out 3 years after Episode 7, or, I don't know, The Mandalorian. Like, I know it'll be a movie soon, but that was a movie or something like that. Like, I feel like Star Wars wouldn't feel so overwhelming. Like, they could make their books, they could still make their comic books, they could make their animated shows. But if they kept the really big stories to a movie every few years, I think it would feel different. With James Bond, I know that before they had set on making Casino Royale because the most recent film was Die Another Day. Like, there was talk of, well, let's make a film where we spin off the Halle Berry character from Die Another Day because Halle Berry was a big star at the time, and then she had to make Catwoman. And I would think that the idea of let's take a Bond character from any of these films and give them this whole big story. It's just happening with so many franchises now, like Star Trek. Like, even though like that's multiple TV shows, it just becomes very confusing. Like, you've got like a TV show about Picard that starts referencing characters from the original series. And I just couldn't imagine James Bond getting that type of treatment. Like, even though he has all these books and stories, like the films come out every few years and it's much more spread out and much easier to follow. Like, even with so many films and the idea of we get James Bond content all the time really makes me sad. So yeah. I think that's what's coming. And I don't want it to, but I am definitely expecting, here's a film about Oddjob. Here's a film about the origin of Jaws, and it's just going to get absolutely infuriating. Yeah. And the overall discussion of it online has been largely negative. Like, there's not a lot of people that have really grown to like this news at all. And then it gets to, like, well, who's the next James Bond going to be? Because people are still throwing names out like Henry Cavill. And, I mean, look, like, Henry Cavill probably could have been a good shot at being Bond, say, I don't know, several years ago. Like, there's that, I mean, recently all these screen tests for Casino Royale have wound up online, and all sorts of people are there. There's Anthony Starr, Homelander from The Boys, like, and there's Sam Worthington, and, like, who doesn't try to change his accent, and then and Henry Cavill is there, who's about 22, and he gets the coolness down, but he's also a 22-year-old. And when they were looking at a young James Bond film, I'm glad they went with Daniel Craig, who by his third film was already starting to show his age and that he was getting too old for this. But that is also the purpose of the job in terms of the job that James Bond has. So it doesn't feel like we're only 3 films in it and he's already too old. Like, it didn't feel like that at all. But yeah, Jeffrey Bezos already asked on Twitter who everyone's fan cast for James Bond would be, and I sure hope that's not that's not the official attempt at learning who the casting would be. Like, I really have to believe that's not the case. Like, it probably wouldn't even be his goal, but yeah, that's, if I have to hear Henry Cavill or Tom Hardy or Tom Hiddleston, like any of these actors whose names come up every year, I'm very over all of that. Mm-hmm. Like, I've said for a long time, it needs to be someone that we don't know that well. It's probably some TV star that you and I aren't that familiar with. But now Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
So if I sound very down on this, I am. Um, I get the sense that they could be doing some similar to what's happening with John Wick, where you have 4 really good action films and you want to do a spin-off film, so you also make that. But then you also make this TV series about the Continental Hotel where so much of the events of the film take place and it's set in the past. And no one really knows about it or watches it or even likes it that much. It's just kind of like, oh, you've already over-franchised John Wick. Like this story about a guy getting revenge for the death of his dog. And yeah, it's just blown way out of proportion than it should be because that could have been a standalone film. I like all the other films. Like I think they're very good. And John Wick 4, I think, is especially good. With Marvel, we'll talk a little bit about this with Captain America, but that film has all these characters from a TV show in it, and you start going, okay, which film are all these people from? Oh, it's from the Disney Plus series that came out like 3-4 years ago? And it's hard to keep track of all this stuff. And the idea of James Bond becoming that when it's one character is sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I have to say. Do you have any final thoughts on James Bond?
Not really. You kind of said it all there.
Very, very quickly, I will talk about a film. There was a new Looney Tunes movie that came out called The Day the Earth Blew Up. This is a Daffy and Porky movie. For those of you who aren't aware of Looney Tunes, Daffy and Porky were often paired together in a lot of old Looney Tunes shorts. There's one that I remember where they're sharing a hotel room, and the gimmick is that Daffy is really kooky and annoying, and Porky is more reserved. This is a movie about them essentially growing up and sharing a home and them coming to terms with their differences and saving the world from a gum-related alien invasion. I love this movie. I really, really loved it. Like, I love the Looney Tunes. I grew up with the Looney Tunes, watching it on Cartoon Network and Boomerang, and growing up in the 90s because of stuff like Space Jam and the consistent use of the characters. Like, I just assumed that they were important cartoon characters and had existed forever, will always, like, exist. Like, when you're a kid, you don't know the extent of time and things like that. You just sort of assume things are the norm. Like, there's a point in the theater that the movie starts, and it hit me. Like, I'm watching a 2D animated movie in the theater. And it starts off with the scientist, and he's in the Hubble telescope. He's, like, in a building like that. And it's Fred Tatasciore, who was the voice of the Hulk back in the day in, like, Avengers or Its Mightiest Heroes and everything. And he's doing, like, an old-school scientist voice, and he's, like, looking up at the sky. And I was like, oh, my God, like, it looks beautiful. Like, the animation's great. And, like, I couldn't remember the last time I saw a 2D animated film and feel like it's a new film. Like, there are hilarious gags and visual stuff, and their faces get really wacky and crazy. It's a lot of fun. I would definitely recommend it. And, Warner Brothers really tried to bury this movie. They don't seem to care about these characters as an IP anymore. I mean, obviously, the Wile E. Coyote movie got shelved until just the other day recently. Like, Catch Up Entertainment, they are the ones who bought the rights to distribute this movie. They also did the same thing for this Wile E. Coyote movie. It's a shame that Warner Brothers didn't advertise this movie and that it bombed, because it is a fun animated film that I feel like anyone can enjoy. Like, if you want to have a good laugh, I was laughing the whole time. I would definitely recommend it.
Nice.
Yes. All right. Before you get to a movie that you saw, I'm going to talk about a movie that I have in my notes that I did not tell you about ahead of time.
Okay.
So I'll quickly talk about a movie I watched on Netflix recently. It was meant to be a big Christmas event for Sony. I kind of randomly decided to watch Kraven the Hunter. And, I watch all these dumb Spider-Man Sony movies. I saw all 3 of the Venoms in cinema. God damn it, I watched that Madam Web on Valentine's Day. So there's some things about Kraven the Hunter that I do think actually work, which kind of makes this even more infuriating because the director, J.C. Candor, who has directed good films, and from a filmmaking perspective, I thought the film was largely pretty good. I think a lot of the action is pretty decent, and they were going all out with it being rated R, I suppose. Like, not only do they say the F word a lot, but there's a lot of very violent deaths in the film, and it helped separate it a little more from something like Venom, which feels like it could have been a little higher rated, and they didn't go for that at all, and they decided to make it a little more kid-friendly, and it just never quite felt right for Venom. But here, a Kraven the Hunter movie, I think you had to go a little bit more all the way if it's just a story about him. I mean, Aaron Taylor Johnson, he kind of works well in the role. Like, he doesn't have a Russian accent or anything, but I think he's a good look for Kraven. And I did get this feeling at times of like, you know, he probably could have worked as Bond had they actually gone down that route.
Yeah.
Because the Sony partnership there with Bond and what have you from over the years, it's like they probably could have gone with Aaron Taylor Johnson, but I don't think that's what's happening now. But yeah, the problem mostly is with the script. There are aspects of the script that are just absolutely terrible. You have these good actors like Ariana DeBose, who won an Academy Award a couple of years ago for West Side Story, is saying absolutely atrocious dialogue. And at one point, she has an ADR line where they then animate her mouth to make it look like she's saying that on screen, on camera. Like, it's so bad looking. And it's like, how does this get released by a major studio for a big franchise?
Yeah.
Like, you know, this is a Marvel property. And yeah, it makes your eyes roll when you're listening to these good actors like Russell Crowe and what have you just talk absolute nonsense. And I forgot that Chameleon was in the movie. Like, Chameleon is Kraven the Hunter's brother. Like, I forgot that about that aspect of the film. And there's a point where we suddenly hard cut to a man singing a song, and it sounds exactly like Harry Styles. And it's this man, it's the Chameleon singing the song. And Russell Crowe notes, he could sound like anyone. He is a chameleon. And then I'll spoil it. We get the Chameleon face for a second in the movie, which, to those who don't know, the Chameleon from the Marvel Comics, it does look like the man's face briefly morphs into like a Voldemort face before turning back into his own face. And yeah, we've got the Rhino in this, and he physically turns into a Rhino Man. And Christopher Abbott, who, again, is this really good actor, is playing the Foreigner, who is a character from the comics. And yeah, there are all these Spider-Man things that they drop in throughout the film, and it doesn't really work as a film because the script is insane. And yeah, this is going to be Sony's big holiday hit, and it wasn't because it's not very good. So I thought it was better than Morbius and Madam Web, and the second and third Venom for what it's worth. So if you take all of those films and you put them on a scale, it's one below Venom, the first Venom. The first Venom was the best of these.
Yeah, it was.
You saw this in theaters, didn't you?
I did. There was one other person in the theater. It was amazing. So, yeah, I didn't like this at all. Yeah, you might be like this might be the biggest praise I've ever heard the movie get is from you right now. So like,
wow.
be that, I genuinely don't know anyone that's seen this, by the way. So this is interesting to talk about. But no, I didn't like this at all. I thought it was just really had a lot of pacing issues, really slow, sluggish, boring as fuck. And I think I slightly prefer Morbius over this.
Wow.
Purely because of Matt Smith's dancing. That's better than anything in this movie for me. So it is better than Madam Web, I'll give you that. But that's probably about it.
All right. Do you want to talk about a movie you saw recently?
Yes. Something good. All right. So Steven Soderbergh, he has a new movie called Black. Well, he got another new movie recently. That might have been a 2024 holdover, but I didn't see it. It was called like Presence or something. But yeah, he has a new movie out, probably maybe right now, depending on your theater, called Black Bag. and I had no clue what this movie was about. Did not see a single trailer. I only recognized some of the cast in it. Michael Fassbender is the lead, and Kate Blanchett's in it. Like, really great cast. And I was like, oh, let me check this out. And, I was just totally surprised, like, what I ended up getting. It was kind of like a spy thriller whodunit. It was really bizarre and, like, really interesting. And, like, really well executed, really well acted. Just a really great experience overall. So, if you have the time or have the ability to watch Black Bag, I definitely recommend it.
Excellent. Well, what's next? Is it time for the first half of the main event?
Let's do it.
All right. So the first movie we're going to talk about, it went through years of reshoots. They reshot the movie 4 times. No, they didn't, Rob Liefeld, you fucking idiot. Like, they didn't reshoot the movie 4 times. What is the matter with you, Rob Liefeld? What are you doing? Like, how would you think that's real? Anyway, we're talking about Captain America: Brave New World. All right, what are your thoughts on this, Chris? Give me your snapshot opinion of this movie that is probably not in theaters anymore.
It's fine. I mean, there's not much to really say about it. I think as a Captain America movie, following up First Avenger, Winter Soldier, Civil War, it's clearly the worst of the 4.
Okay.
Not bad, but it just doesn't reach that height, because I think overall, like, if you took, like, each franchise of the MCU, like, the Captain America movies are pretty high up there for me. Like, probably on par, like, just collectively on par with, like, say, like, Avengers or Guardians of the Galaxy. And this, I think, kind of falls short of that a little bit. Like, it feels a little bit more stale and generic in comparison to those other ones. Like, obviously big shoes to fill. You got Winter Soldier and Civil War, Russo brother movies, like, really, really peak Marvel content right there. So I think as a follow-up to that, it's not amazing. I think as a follow-up to Falcon and Winter Soldier, it's also not amazing. But just in it of itself, just a random Marvel movie in 2025, it is fine, I guess. But the reshoots, more than any other Marvel movie I've ever seen, the reshoots have never been so obvious to me. Like,
right.
It is really, really insane.
It's kind of hard. You have to talk about the elephant in the room before you address what happens in the film, because you and I, we have this podcast. We follow news online. We hear all the time about there's a new reshoot going on. They've had bad test screenings, and this becomes the story about how, like, what's going on with the MCU. Like, why are they having so much trouble? And I always find that funny because neither of us liked it, but Deadpool Wolverine was a huge successful film last year that people liked. Mm-hmm. And Spider-Man No Way Home was this, like, huge film, and Guardians was a big successful film that people liked almost 2 years ago now. Like, it feels like they keep having all these successes, but the story is, why isn't it the same? And it becomes the story that people plant in their heads that I don't think is exactly true. When I watch this Captain America movie, it doesn't have the spy element that I think they were kind of putting out there a little bit. Like, to me, it feels like a 90s action movie that I think is really enjoyable and quite fun. If I apply the MCU part of that big world to it, so there's a new Falcon that we didn't really get to learn about in the TV series. And the Isaiah Bradley character, like, the performance is fantastic. There's especially a point where he's in prison talking to Sam where it's like, man, look at this guy go. He is so good. But then you get to probably the most talked about thing about this movie is just the lack of Captain America stuff in this Captain America movie. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I've always liked about Sam Wilson in the MCU is they develop him as kind of a funny guy in Steve Rogers' life from the beginning of Winter Soldier. And then the next time we see him, he's doing his day job where he has these group counseling sessions with other people from the Army. And the fact that they keep that as a part of his character and they make it some, like, there's some lines about, like, oh, this is what you do. And yeah, I like that about him. But my point earlier about, like, introducing all these characters from a TV show that I'm not sure everyone remembers is from that, if that TV show, if Falcon and Winter Soldier was a movie. Like, if that was Captain America Brave New World, and then this film here was, New World Order, as its original title, or whatever you want to call it. If that was a sequel to that movie, I think a lot of the complaints that I think I have in my head, just in terms of following the MCU, I think those would be taken down a little bit. But, like, I like the new Falcon, but we don't get a lot with him. But there's a good scene at the end of the film where he's talking about, like, I always screw up, and I can't beat you. But we've also been watching Sam this whole movie, doubting himself, not being sure if he's doing the right thing or how he can overcome this problem. And it's cool seeing the mentor dealing with that, and then seeing his protege also dealing with that, but seeing Sam in a totally different way. And there's some good character stuff that I really enjoyed. And I mentioned in my Letterboxd review that I thought the third act was quite strong. And upon seeing the film a second time, I think the beginning of the film is also pretty strong. And it reminds me a little bit of Civil War and a little bit of the first of the Winter Soldier, where Cap is on this mission. It's a very similar opening. But it reminds me of Civil War in terms of, going into a building, beating all these bad guys, and there's a weapon they've got to get, and they have a lot of similarities to this opening scene. And then he fights a really big guy, and I think one of the unfortunate things is you have this character that's the head of the Serpent Society, and he's clearly a reshoot implant character that Giancarlo Esposito plays. If you want any evidence of that, it's like, what is it? It's because the only character he interacts with this whole movie is Sam Wilson. But I'm also remembering when the trailer for this was shown at CinemaCon last year, where he wasn't included at all. And then the trailer came out, and it was a similar trailer, and he was all through it, like, in terms of, to the rest of the public. And from the original footage, Seth Rollins was in the movie, like the wrestler, and then he's not even in this film. And yeah, they clearly reshot a lot of that stuff with an actor that we all recognize playing a villain, the way he often plays villains recently. And he's after adamantium. Like, we finally get adamantium in the MCU here. I mean, it's so funny, like, hearing Harrison Ford say adamantium in the movie. It's like, the great Harrison Ford saying such a comic booky word is very funny to me. I guess that's a good segue to Harrison Ford. I'll just say quickly on that note of Harrison Ford. He's Harrison Ford. He's always great.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that, I would have preferred this, but there's obviously a lot of connections to the Incredible Hulk film. And I think those connections would have felt a little more earnest if we still had William Hurt in the role, because we obviously can't have that. But right. If he was still in the role, the connections would have felt a lot stronger. And now that we're starting to incorporate the Incredible Hulk into things again, like bringing back Ross, using adamantium, Liv Tyler is in this movie for a scene, and I believe she also shot a different scene, which is not in the film. Mm-hmm. But yeah, she just shows up, and it's like, you have to remember that film from 2008 that they stopped referencing a while ago to know who she is. And that's a bit of a shame because it's Liv Tyler. She's a great actress, but she shows up, and it's like, here's this actress that plays a famous comic book character that you have no reason to remember anymore. What do you think of the Incredible Hulk stuff in this?
I mean, it's pretty heavy, and you didn't even mention the biggest one, which is the leader being the main villain.
Oh, we'll get to that. We will get to that.
Okay, but yeah,
let's start with Harrison Ford first. What do you think of him?
Okay. I mean, he's charming as always. Being dragged in to do these big Disney movies again and again. He's you pretty much said it all. Adamantium is the biggest highlight for Harrison Ford, but no, he's pretty good in this. Like, he didn't phone it in as much as I thought he would, but
No,
he still,
he didn't.
yeah. But, like, you could still, like, he clearly does not give a shit about any of this, though. It's still really funny. But, yeah. That's
I love
Brennan.
that. I love that he didn't grow the mustache for the whole movie, but there is one bit
fake
where you do
mustache.
see the mustache. Like, they have a joke, like it just begs the question, like, why he didn't wear that mustache in the whole movie. Because I mean, the line about like lose the mustache or lose the presidency it's funny, but it also says, well, you could have at least had that defining characteristic feature. So
Yeah.
okay. Is this the second time for an MCU recast where they've made a joke about the recast? Because I'm thinking back to Iron Man 2, where Don Cheadle walks in for the first time. And he's like, hey, it's me. I'm here. We're moving on. Something like that. He says something like that. Is this the second time they've made a joke about a recast within the movie? It's like we must explain why this man doesn't have a mustache. All right. Let's talk about the leader.
Okay.
If I may, on this whole point, so General Ross has had a heart attack, and he's like, oh, God, like, I could die, and I'm not even at war anymore. So it makes sense. He's like, I have a scientist that I've blamed for the creation of Abomination, so I'm going to get him to do good work for me. And I'll promise him something that I'm not going to give him. Like, that I'm actually totally fine with. But it is funny that he has just trusted that Stearns is just doing the right thing by him. Like, it totally makes sense. Like that. So the funny thing to me is that this film treats Samuel Stearns like we are meant to remember him from The Incredible Hulk, where he only has a few scenes anyway. And I think that the really big story with this is that they definitely shot some stuff with him where his look was very different.
Yeah.
So the leader, which always is, he's also not called that in the film. Like, there's a scene where he says, I know who I am. And then he says, the hero. But the original look for the leader, we see him in the comics. He's got this, like, giant head, and he has, like, the little mustache, and he's green. So in this, they were going to give him a giant head, still with that, like, big, like, widow's peak hairline. And also, instead of a small mustache, he was going to have, like, a goatee. I saw a pop figure of this just before the film came out. And I was disappointed because, like, they kept his look out of the trailers. And I was like, oh, man, the look got spoiled for me by a goddamn Funko Pop. And then I see the film, and he doesn't really look like that. But they give, like, a brain. Like it looks like a brain is coming out of his head, or, like, the veins are so huge. Like, which totally makes sense for this tone of film. Like, I could see if he just has the giant head and a goatee where he still looks a little kind of like, look at me, I look handsome. Like, I like that one image that's floating around to that conceptual image. Like, I could see where they go, this doesn't quite fit the type of tone that we're going for. Like, we need to change this look to be a little creepier. So I actually really like the design that they went for in the film. Which may be a controversial opinion of mine, but it does become very clear that they reshot, like, scenes with him, because there's a scene where he's talking to Sam in the daylight where he's clearly been inserted into the scene later, and he's a little blurry, and it just looks bad.
Yeah.
What do you think of the leader?
I mean, as a design, like, I wouldn't have really cared either way. I don't really hate the design he has in the film. I know a lot of people are wishing that he had the, like, original concepts and, like, you know, the Funko Pops and everything. But just as a villain, like, it is bizarre that, like, the movie really does hinge that you remember this the Incredible Hulk, like, 15. How long has it been? Like, almost 20 years.
17
like,
years, yeah.
Exactly. It's just like, you know, and that at the time, obviously we've had a lot more connections grow since then, but, like, at the time it was, like, pretty unanimous. Is like, you can just completely skip Hulk, and, like, you know, say, like, phase 2 era is like, you could have skipped Hulk, you would have been fine, you wouldn't miss anything. And now it's like we're going back, and it's like, oh, now you need to, we threw Ross back into the movies. And we have the leader is going to be the main villain in Captain America 4 almost 20 years later and almost like 30 movies later. Like it's just really bizarre to me. And he's fine. It's my issue is that like I always kind of get annoyed, and I know this is like the whole leader's gimmick, so maybe I just don't like the leader in general, but like I just get annoyed that like, you know, villains that like see the future or like some weird vague version of that, and like but it's not really like explored at all. It's just like, oh, you know, I've seen all possible outcomes, and it's like it's just a whole lot of like pure luck, you know.
Right.
So you know, his presence is all right, but yeah, I don't care that much about the leader. So
right. Well, what do you think of the action in this film in general?
Pretty good. I think as the movie keeps going, it gets better and better. I think the first action scene is, I don't know, it was weird. It felt like, I don't know, just too slow and just too sluggish. But as you keep going, you have that one action scene with the Eternals thing, the Celestial in the ocean.
Yeah.
That one was pretty good. And then the big highlight is definitely the Red Hulk fight.
Yeah. So I guess this is where it definitely connects a lot to the Winter Soldier film, because, you know, there's the bit where Sam is like running out of the building or trying to run to the edge of the building before it collapses, and they have to find the floor that he's on, and it's very over the top, and they're fighting Hydra and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I think as like an over the top action film, it's fun. Like I actually think the Red Hulk scene, like you said, is really good, and not just to echo what I said about Companion, but I think if they had kept the Red Hulk out of all of the marketing of this, like that would have been a really nice surprise. And I think the film would have felt a little more like it built to something that was a little more unexpected and earned, because they made Red Hulk so much of the marketing in this film. Like that first trailer, like it just appears for a second, but he has his own poster, and they're not holding back on all of the merchandise. And yeah, I think if they had kept that a secret, and you would have been like, oh my God, he's going to turn to the Red Hulk in this film? Like that would have felt a little more earned. Instead, it's such a big piece of marketing that we knew was going to happen all along.
I mean, that's like just a tale as old as time for Marvel. You know, that's just, I think back to like, that made me think of like Ragnarok, you know, when they show Hulk in the trailers, and like the big marketing for that was like, oh, it's Thor and Hulk team up movie. And it's like, just imagine if you didn't have that knowledge of Hulk in the movie, like going into it, and like the shock you would have gotten. Like that would have been insane.
Yeah, but I mean, I like the Red Hulk fight. I like the part where he's chasing him through like all the trees, and Sam Wilson's trying to fly past all these trees, and at one point Hulk picks up a tree and throws it at him. Like little things like that I enjoyed. Like in terms of the story, yeah, I think it's very, very basic, but I do tend to become a little more attracted to some of these MCU films that are more character-driven, like one character fixing a problem, as opposed to how many people can we insert into this movie for fun. And I know we've talked about like the Red Hulk would have been fun if they didn't advertise and things like that, but I guess in terms of storytelling, I do like Sam Wilson has this issue and he needs to solve it, as opposed to a big world-ending plot that he needs to stop. So him dealing with this one problem, like he compares himself to Steve, who has stopped 2 alien invasions. Granted, he had help, but I can't say he stopped them. I mean, I guess Avengers 1 is the first alien invasion. Like, but he also lost one, so there's something for you. He also got punched really hard by Thanos.
Yeah.
What do you think of the Bucky cameo in this?
I was actually really, like, I was surprised. I was thinking, like, if they were going to throw him in this at all. Because obviously, you know, he's in Thunderbolt, so it's definitely
It got me wondering where exactly this in Thunderbolts, like, I know this is where people probably groan when I say something like this, like, but where they take place in the timeline. Because they're called Thunderbolts in the film, which in the comics is a reference to Thunderbolt Ross, and they do call him Thunderbolt Ross one time in this film. And it got me thinking, because we've seen the bit in the trailer where the Red Guardian is saying, like, we are the Thunderbolts, and Bucky's like we can't be called that. Like, that's terrible. So is it a reference to Ross, or is it something else in the film? And it got me thinking, oh, are they being called that because he's the new president and he wants to start a superhero team? And maybe that doesn't work out, which is what leads to the plot of him wanting to start a new Avengers. Or is it that he is in prison now? Like, yeah, I don't know.
I'm willing to bet that Thunderbolt is after Brave New World.
I think so too, just because Bucky's hair is longer in Thunderbolts. So
yeah,
it must be after. So maybe he got the vote for Congress. Like, he's like, I killed JFK. I'll go. Hey, he gets my vote anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, and also I have a theory that, like, because there's not many movies left before Doomsday, so I have a feeling like Thunderbolts is the ending of that's gonna tie pretty heavy into Doomsday. So
sure.
But that's just my thinking. You know, the end of this is just, we got to set up the Avengers again. So, yeah. But yeah, no, I thought the cameo itself though was pretty good. It was neat seeing that opening night. You know, everyone's kind of surprised, and I didn't get it spoiled, so like that was fun. And yeah. It's always great to see Bucky. It's always a joy.
Yeah, well, I guess just quickly on that note, referencing real life politics, there's a lot of that in this film where you could definitely see where Ross and Trump have a lot of similarities. Like, yes. Except this is where the president does go to prison and accepts his wrongdoings. And I think that's interesting to kind of tackle in a movie like this. But I guess the big problem is that it's a big, big action film. You don't really get too in-depth, like, go into the drama of that. There's a scene where he's called the Hulk Hunter to his face. And later he says something like, Betty never trusted me for hunting down Banner. And it's like, again, it's Harrison Ford saying this, and I have to picture him in The Incredible Hulk, and also, I guess, Mark Ruffalo. But yeah, it's funny that they deal with this stuff because it feels so far away from this character. Where again, I know that we can't actually have William Hurt, like he's gone, but if we had that same actor where you can see the line where it's like, yeah, it is pretty crazy that this guy is the president, but yeah, he's kind of a real life experience from us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess a slight controversy with this movie was probably the actress chosen for like the secret agent character working for Ross. Like, it's mentioned once that she's from Israel. Like maybe more was in the original cut. Like much like most of this movie doesn't have it doesn't have a lot of biting commentary. Is the thing. It's just on the discussion of that character, like, because they reference that she's a former widow, like a Red Room person, and not that the actress was bad or anything, but it felt like we really needed someone with a lot more personality on screen than her. She's very, very dry, and she's essentially, again, comparing this to the other two Captain America films that the Russo brothers did, she's essentially meant to be like the Black Widow, as in the Scarlett Johansson like inclusion, where she works off of Chris Evans in a certain way, and she's a little bit more of a fun personality. And I feel like that we needed someone like that. And I don't know if they cast the character here totally well either.
Yeah.
So I guess closing thoughts for me on this is that I'm sticking by that this is it's a fun movie that I enjoyed. It's certainly not anything that blows me away or I'll be talking about that much. And I'm hoping for more from the next two Marvel films this year. But yeah, this, again, the discussion of what's wrong with Marvel. And again, you point to all these films, even, I know not everyone liked Multiverse of Madness, but that made a lot of money. And is the problem that Marvel are putting out too many things? Like, that is certainly part of the problem. But is the other problem that, that you also have so many shows that you have to keep up with? And, I disagree with the standpoint of, like, we're not building towards anything, because the MCU also wasn't always doing that. Like, we made films about characters that we ended up liking, and in each film they had a certain, issue that they were dealing with. But the after credit scene of this film, which now the word is like that this was referring to the Illuminati, but the leader is in prison, and like he's in the raft, and he's talking about what are you gonna do when the others get here, or something like that. And it's the most vague nonsense that made me go, this could apply to anything. Like this could apply to, like, I mean, if you still want to do something with Kang, or it's something to do with Secret Wars, or it's something to do with Doom. Like, you could apply it to absolutely anything, and I hated that. It's like, why couldn't you just show a scene from Thunderbolts, since that's the next film, and Bucky was in this film? Like, that would have been totally fine. Like, when we were still in the raft, I thought we were going to get a scene with Zemo.
Yeah.
What are your closing thoughts?
Yeah, nothing much. Kind of similar. I kind of wish this was just a little bit, deeper as a Captain America movie. You kind of have that platform to make some sort of subtle statement about the current state of America, and I feel like they were a little bit more sanitized with this, and that's probably what a lot of the reshoots were. And so, yeah, it's not outstanding, but it's fun. It's enjoyable.
Well, there you go. You did well, Sam Wilson. Kind of. All right. Now it's time for the grand finale. It's
all right.
Mickey 17, everybody. The new Bong Joon-ho film. I was going to say hit. It is not that. It has not been a hit. So I will echo what everyone is saying online. Stop saying we never get original movies, because we've talked about plenty of original films in this podcast in the past. There's plenty of original stuff out that comes out. It's up to you to see it. So there.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on Mickey 17?
I thought it was pretty good. It's not very subtle at all. That's the biggest thing that kind of stood out to me, was how obvious everything was. But it's still really enjoyable, obviously, and pretty different than what I thought it was going to be too. Because I thought, I guess, kind of minor spoilers here.
Sure.
It's been out for like a month. I don't know. You guys have probably already seen it. But anyways, I thought, like, based off the trailers, this would be like a widespread issue with like what do they call them in the movie? They call them like duplicates or something like that.
I think so. Something like that. And I thought there was gonna be like, hundreds of like Robert Pattinsons, and it's only 2 throughout the entire movie. And I wasn't upset about that. I actually kind of like that. I like how kind of scaled back that aspect was, and like how different the 2 of them were. But yeah. I love that there's no explanation for why they're different, despite the fact that they're clones. Clone. I love it.
It's great.
So I really liked it as well. It's definitely one of those films where I was just really excited to see it, because I like the filmmaker. And when we got our first look at the film last year, I was like, oh, this is like a comedic kind of film. And I was getting, like, I think the film I was comparing it to a little bit was Moon, just because of like the multiple of the main character being sent in space. It was kind of like, that was sort of the first film that came to my mind of like, oh, it feels a little bit more like that than this like big drama that you might think that the director of Parasite might make immediately after that. Like, that's not to say that there aren't comedic moments in all of his films, including Parasite, because there are. But yeah, like that was the type of film I was thinking about. And there is definitely this running theme in his English-speaking movies, like Okja and like Snowpiercer, with his classism talk. And when it's set with almost like, I want to say like an American perspective to it, I feel like any of the subtlety or cleverness that he kind of gives in a film like Parasite that also deals with it, or The Host, like it's totally gone when he does it in the English-speaking films, and which is fine. Yeah. That's fair. I will say, I think I had a little bit of a disappointment by it initially, where I was like, I really liked it, but it wasn't quite the film I thought it might be. And is that on me as just like someone with an expectation? I think it is. But there are certain aspects of the film where we spend a long period of time learning about the scientists who created the multiples technology. It's multiples. I just remember.
Multiples, okay.
And it establishes that it's kind of illegal and it's off-putting, which is something that we've kind of already got from seeing Mickey go through all of these things. It almost felt like, I don't know if we needed all of that point, all of that point there, other than to show that the character that Mark Ruffalo was playing, who was very much a Trump-esque political figure, you know.
Yeah.
Like, he picks it up, but we already know that that guy is like a politically unhinged type character. So there were little bits like that was like, I don't know if we needed all of that, but, you know, whatever. And then, you know, there's the character. I can't remember what her name was, but we see that she's in a relationship with a girl who was killed on the mission, and then she starts to befriend Mickey, and she comes up with the idea of one person gets one Mickey, and she gets the other Mickey.
Yeah.
And, like, then right after that point, it just gets dropped. Like, we don't really see her again until the very end of the film where she's sitting in an audience, and there's little things like that, or Mickey picking up on, like, women's shampoo smells smells these things where I'm like, something was there with those plot points, and we didn't get, like, a full resolution of them. And I think those are the things that kind of stopped me from liking it as much as I wanted to. Because also at the time, I was surprised that we spent so much time with, like, the creatures that live on the planet that Mickey and this space crew were kind of planted on.
Yeah.
Like, we spent a lot more time with them than I thought we were going to with like the different Mickeys. And I don't know if I'm really complaining about that as much. Like that was something that I definitely attached to a little bit at the time I saw it, but now I'm kind of fine with that. But yeah, it just wasn't quite the film I was expecting. So I am really keen to watch it another time because I think I'll go into it with a little bit of a different perspective. But yeah, with that said, Robert Pattinson is great.
Yes.
And the film has such a weird and quirky sense of humor that a lot of Bong Joon-ho's films have. And yeah, those are the aspects of it that I really, really like and would definitely make me want to see it again.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Bong Joon-ho's other films besides Parasite?
Besides Parasite, not really. Those are kind of the only two I've seen, is Parasite and those.
Okay. I mean, when it comes to Bong Joon-ho's films, Parasite is, I mean, it's very safe to say that's his best film. That film kind of changed a lot of people's views on how they approach watching films and what have you. My personal favorite might be Memories of Murder. It's a little bit like Zodiac in terms of tone and the way it tells the story, I want to say. But you're following these cops where one of them is a bit more experienced and knows what he's doing. The other is kind of like, you know, he talks himself up a lot, but he wants to find this person doing these murders, but he's not super honest about the way he conducts his investigations. Yeah, I really, really like that film. When you, again, look at this person and their work, it's funny that you then get to, he's making a film for Warner Brothers after his huge Oscars win. And it's come out like 5 years after it won Best Picture. And this is his first film since then. And yeah, there's a lot to look at in that respect. But at the same time, all these people that he assembled, like Toni Collette, like Mark Ruffalo, like Robert Pattinson, you know, he's a great filmmaker, and he makes all these really interesting decisions in terms of who he collects and for his film. Like, you know, again, you look at something like Snowpiercer, and he went with Chris Evans in the middle of his Captain America run. I mean, I don't know what I'm trying to say with all of that, but I'm just very, like, I love Bong Joon-ho's work, and I'll always be there to see his films.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any final things to say about Mickey 17 as a whole? Because I kind of have something to say about its box office performance and movies in general.
Yeah, you can go ahead and talk about that. I'm
sure.
On the same wavelength.
Okay, well, I mean, we've talked about a bunch of films that, again, are not necessarily the biggest films that have been released. Like, even something like Kraven the Hunter, which is based on a Marvel character, and I'm not recommending everyone go see that. I probably shouldn't have even included that in this podcast. But in terms of all these films that we've watched, and we're about to enter this period where we're getting a lot of big studio summer releases. I do hope that people continue to go out of their way to watch stuff like Mickey 17. It's a shame that something like Mickey 17 will be looked at by a studio as losing them a lot of money and not something that will eventually make them more money on DVD or anything like that anymore. I mean, mainly because they don't make DVDs anymore.
Yeah.
This film just lost the studio a bunch of money, and this is the guy that won the Best Director and Best Picture and what have you. Yeah, I hope that it's Neon and A24 and some of those studios that end up making films with smaller, less well-known filmmakers or what have you. Yeah, I guess I'm just in that kind of mindset at the moment of like, this year is so full of like, we've got a Minecraft movie and we have another live-action Disney remake. Last year we had so many big animated films that just dominated the box office. And I guess I just kind of had that feeling of like, what are people watching now? Like, is everyone going out to see Moana 2? And we just kind of expect that that's what people are into. Or do stuff like Mickey 17 or Black Bag, or, some of these films that have been really well liked, like, do they just kind of fall by the wayside and they're only viewed by dedicated cinephiles or what have you? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, you go back to 2023 when the highest grossing studio of the year was Universal, and then you look at the top 10 films of the year, and it's kind of spread out across a bunch of different studios. The top 10 films there, and then you get to last year, and it's, again, like that domination of animated films and so many of the IPs, like Disney are throughout that list, and it makes you go like, okay, are things just the way they were pre-pandemic now? Or does it take something like a Barbenheimer type thing to get people out to the cinema to go to something that feels like an event? And that is an event that was spawned by fans online, So what do you do? Because there's always talk of like, oh, this is going to be another Barbenheimer, this film, like Captain America and Paddington come out the same day or whatever it was. And it's like, well, that's not the same thing, clearly. And,
yeah,
a lot of people who saw both Barbie and Oppenheimer, they probably had no idea about Nolan's relationship with Warner Brothers and, like, all of that backstory that meant something to us. So now as we, again, go into this year where, I'm definitely expecting something like Minecraft to be what Mario was a few years ago. But where Mario was 100% aimed at kids, it's kind of just like a fun adventure film. Minecraft is, to me, feeling like a little different to that. Like, maybe I'm wrong to think so negatively about it, but I just get bad vibes from something like that Minecraft movie.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean.
Like, I hate to go on a rant like this. Is this just like we don't understand what people like? Like, it is. Like, I don't know, but it's just kind of a weird thing where here was Mickey 17. I know it's based on a book where he gets killed like 10 less times, but based on a book, but a relatively unknown, IP that you can maybe build off of, or I don't know. It just could have been a big success, with a really well-known star. And I saw barely any marketing for it at all. So when people talk like, oh, this will have like a Barbie level marketing, like they're not doing that for all of their films. Like they're very selective with it, but maybe they find they need to be selective with it because they have a lot more faith in something like Superman being really successful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. I didn't really feel like talking about the Avengers Doomsday casting. Maybe we will.
Well, that'll be for another time.
Yeah, I guess so.
We'll probably get more cast members soon too. So.
Oh, jeez, yes. We'll get 27 more chairs.
Oh my God! 6 more hours of our lives.
Man. Well, do you have any final words about like the current state of films?
Not really. I mean, you said it all right there. So it's nice. Interesting right now as we approach next summer season. So
there you go. Well, Chris, where can people find you online?
Find me over on Instagram and Letterboxd.
Yep, I'm there as well. I'm on Blue Sky. And you can also find my editing work for the Amazing Spider Talks YouTube channel. So check that out. And we'll see you all next time. Take care, everyone. Bye.